Why does Israel hate UNRWA so much? UNRWA stands for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. So why is it that they hate them so much? Why is it that the infamous Elon Levi said that UNRWA is just simply a face or a front for Hamas? As we know, in the last week or so, there have been two significant issues that have come to light. One of which has been repeated and is constantly in the news, and the other one died a death in mainstream news and mainstream media very quickly. The one that's perpetuated is this idea that there were members of Hamas involved in the attacks on October the 7th against Israel, either directly or indirectly. 12 members, in fact. The other one that died its death was the ICJ ruling. And so it was very convenient that just 24 hours after the ICJ ruling, which found that Israel, or provisionally ruled that Israel has a case to answer, that there's a plausible case of genocide being committed by Israel, that is a very significant situation, yet it's barely mentioned within the media now. What is mentioned, however, is that UNRWA and how they have a problem with Hamas. And as a result of this, just based upon the Israeli security services, Shin Bet, extracted the information that supposedly these 12 members of UNRWA were working for Hamas or were involved in the 7th of October attack. And it also should be mentioned that Shin Bet itself has been accused of torturing Palestinian captives in the past. So they have made this accusation, the Israeli security services, and based on this information that has been publicized within the media, straight away, what have we seen? Mainly Western countries such as America, Canada, UK, Australia, Germany, and others, like I said, mainly Western nations, that they have cut this funding to UNRWA. Here's what the former spokesman of UNRWA, Christopher Dunners, had to say.
It certainly feels from within UNRWA as if there is an existential threat due to what feels like a coordinated political and economic attack on the agency. So yes, it is extremely serious. And also be clear about one thing, this comes within days of the ruling of the ICJ, the Supreme Court of the world. And the president of that court made it very clear in issuing these provisional measures, and that's not just Israel, it's all the 150 state parties to the Genocide Convention. They are in violation of that convention if they're going to impede the delivery of humanitarian aid. And what is happening now is that it looks like these Western states are complicit in the violation of that convention and supporting Israel. We've got former Israeli officials on Twitter X saying that they'll never win this war unless they defeat UNRWA. This is highly political, and the United Nations, from Antonio Guterres down, needs to recognize this is a political attack, and they need to step up to the plate and defend UNRWA's mandate and its historic responsibilities.
Christopher Dunners made the point, which is that one of the key provisional rulings that the ICJ made was that they had to provide, or Israel had to provide, humanitarian aid, meaning food, water, fuel, medicine, electricity, to the besieged people of Gaza. And so it seems incredible that one of the main organizations that is providing humanitarian aid, in this case UNRWA, has its funding cut by America and Britain and other mainly Western countries. It's incredible that this situation has occurred. And what Christopher Dunners has said is that they have contravened or contradicted the very ruling of the ICJ in this particular case. How is it that you can cut off aid when the ICJ have claimed in their provisional ruling that the aid must be supplied? How can you cut off aid to the very organization providing this aid in the first place? However, why is there antagonism that Israel has with UNRWA? Why are they constantly after UNRWA, wanting to discredit it and also to see it disbanded? Firstly, UNRWA was set up in 1949, and this was in the aftermath of the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by the formation of the Israeli state. Over 750,000 Palestinians were forced out of their homes and made refugees, either displaced within other areas of Palestine like Gaza, as we see today, and West Bank, or in other countries like Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Egypt, etc. And so UNRWA, probably feeling the need to placate the Arab sentiment, and because, remember, the United Nations themselves legitimized and legalized this ethnic cleansing by recognizing the State of Israel in 1948, they helped set up this United Nations relief organization specifically for the Palestinians. This would also allow or absolve the Arab rulers and the Muslim rulers from directly intervening in terms of the Arab problem, because they would say, well, hold on, you have United Nations. They can deal with it. They can deal with the fallout and the problems of these Palestinian refugees. So UNRWA was founded and was providing aid and employs now up to 30,000 workers who work to provide support for the 5.2 million refugees outside of Palestine and even the 5 million or so refugees that exist within Palestine as we see today. Thus, UNRWA, not only does it provide relief to the people of Palestine, but also recognizes them and maintains the idea that the Palestinian people have a refugee status, like the 5.2 million Palestinians who live outside of Palestine in Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt, that they still have designated for them the refugee status. And it should be remembered that the United Nations General Assembly ruled, or they passed a resolution, that Palestinians have a right to return. The Palestinian refugees have a right to return. So you have one UN body that says that the Palestinian refugees have the right to return, and another UN body that recognizes that 5.2 million population living outside of Palestine currently, that they are refugees. Therefore, they have a right to return. And why is that a big problem for Israel? Here's what Netanyahu stated about UNRWA. He said that UNRWA perpetuates the Palestinian refugee problem. So yes, he sees it as a problem. The Israeli foreign minister goes on to say, Israel Katz, he says, we have been warning for years, UNRWA perpetuates the refugee issue, obstructs peace, and serves as a civilian arm of Hamas in Gaza. UNRWA is not the solution. Many of its employees are Hamas affiliates and with murderous ideologies, aiding in terror activities and preserving its authority. So it seems pretty clear, whether it's Elon Levi, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu, or whether it's the Israeli foreign minister, Israel really cannot stand UNRWA and what it stands for. So why is that the case? Well, it comes down to one issue, which is to do with demographics. You see, Israel was founded as a claim to be a Jewish homeland. And in order for the Jews to maintain the idea that Israel is a Jewish homeland, they have to maintain the Jewish majority within that region. But there's a problem in regards to this. And the problem was that when they established the Israeli state, they had to displace the actual real majority. The real majority being the Palestinians who had lived there for centuries, over 1,000 years, maybe even going back even further than that. And so they had to change the demographics. And in order to preserve, quote unquote, its Jewish identity, they have to maintain this Jewish majority. And in fact, in 2018, they issued a law. The law was called the Nation State Law. One of the key components for this was the idea that it states that the right to exercise national self-determination in Israel is unique to the Jewish people. Listen to this point again, that the national state law passed in 2018, one of the key, out of the 3 key points, one of the key points that it was passed is that it stated that the right to exercise national self-determination in Israel is unique to the Jewish people. The second thing was it establishes Hebrew as Israel's official language and downgraded Arabic. And thirdly, it establishes Jewish settlements as a national value. Where's the Jewish settlements currently expanding? In the West Bank as we speak, and mandates that the state will labor to encourage and promote its establishment and development. So these are the three key components to this. That first one, which is that Israel has this national Jewish identity and it will preserve it. This is what Ayman Odeh, who's the leader of the coalition of primarily Arab parties, he said in a statement that Israel had passed a law of Jewish supremacy and told us, either Arabs living in Israel, Israeli Arabs as they call them, that we will always be second-class citizens. How does Israel maintain the demographics, this Jewish majority? They try and pass laws, but the real problem is this idea that actually the demographics don't work, especially when you incorporate the idea of the Palestinian refugees living outside of Palestine who have a right to return. Why? Well, the population of Israel is 9 million, 2 million of whom are Arabs or Palestinians. So there's only 7 million Jews. Gaza has over 2 million population. So you have 2 million Israeli Palestinians. Then you have 2 million in Gaza. You have over 3 million in West Bank. So just with Gaza, the Palestinians in Israel, and also the Palestinians in West Bank, you have 7 million. So you have 7 million Jews and 7 million Palestinians. Now, if you add the right to return of those 5.2 million Palestinians living as refugees or hold the refugee status, who are allowed to return back to their lands that they were ethnically cleansed from, then suddenly you have over 12 million Palestinians compared to 7 million Jews. How then does Israel say that it's a homeland for the Jewish people when they are the minority within that land? Do you see? This is the problem. And with UNRWA accepting and acknowledging the Palestinians as a refugee status and have a right to return back to their homelands that they were ethnically cleansed, they are a problem for the very existence of this Jewish homeland known as Israeli state.
And I pray and I hope that UNRWA will see the need to move out to the Arab world. Where is the Arab world? We've got these Western donors launching what feels like a coordinated political attack on the agency. This is a Middle Eastern problem. The Palestine refugee problem is in the neighborhood, in the backyard of these Arab states who've got billions and billions in oil money. Why can't they step up to the plate and give UNRWA the funds it needs to deal with what is effectively a problem which is destabilizing their region? Listen to what the Houthis say. They say that what is going on in Gaza is the cause of their war, the casus belli, so to speak. And what these Arab donors need to realize is that their attitude towards UNRWA in this specific moment will have wider regional implications. Western donors, the very Western donors who say they're worried about a wider conflagration in the Middle East, they're the ones, ironically, who are suspending aid to UNRWA, but the Arab world needs to step up to the plate.
The question is whether the Arabs and the Muslim world should be supplying billions to this United Nations organization. Is it really a solution to the problem? UNRWA has been around since 1949, so over 70 years. This has not been a short-term refugee project. UNRWA does not have the ability to stop the genocide that's taking place. UNRWA itself has its funding constantly being played with by America and Britain and other countries. So therefore, UNRWA is not really the body that the Muslim world should be looking to in order to try to solve the problem of the Palestinian issue within Gaza and the wider area of Palestine. Really, what the Muslim world needs to do, and something that Christopher Dunnes made the point of, he said, look, this is in your backyard. This affects your nation and your state as well. And really, as Muslims, it's even more important because these are people whom we consider our Muslim brothers and sisters. They're not foreign people from a foreign land, but they are meant to be one people, and therefore they have a right to be helped. They have a right in order to prevent the genocide that's taking place there. They have a right to be fed and clothed and given the basic needs with dignity, the ability to have work and economic prosperity. They can't just be abandoned to a United Nations refugee organization and agency, but rather Muslim world with their billions of dollars worth of oil and gas have the capability and the capacity to directly intervene and help. And it's not just the money and the financial resources that they have, but as we have seen with the Houthis militia, the Muslim world have control of the strategic waterways and trade routes, whether that is the Red Sea, or whether that's Egypt with the Suez Canal, or the land routes that go through Saudi, or through Turkey pipelines that go to Israel, that they have the ability to enforce a ceasefire and really come and liberate that whole land and come to the rescue of the Palestinians. They could cut off the airspace to prevent any supplies of weapons and the complicity of the Western countries in supplying weapons to Israel in order to attack and enact its genocide against the people of Gaza. We can see that the end game for Israel really is to maintain a Jewish majority. And really the only way that they can do that is through a policy of ethnic cleansing. Either it's done fast, as we are seeing what's occurring within Gaza, or it's going to be done over a prolonged period of time, which they have tried to do through the apartheid system in the West Bank and also in Israel, where they have two sets of laws, and they have tried to create conditions such that Palestinians feel the need to move out of their land, and that Israel can therefore come in and try to maintain this quote-unquote Jewish majority. So they have to. The only way Israel survives is creating this ethnic imbalance, importing Jews from outside of Palestine to occupy and create more settlements within Palestine, at the same time trying to force out Palestinians and get them to live in other lands so that they can maintain the ethnically cleansed lands for themselves. And so the Muslim world, in its strategic position that it holds, needs to think about how it can be effective, and rather than relying upon UNRWA or even the ICJ's ruling, which will take years to come into effect, they need to start acting now. They have the capability, they have the resources, they need to utilize those God-given, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's given resources to the people in order to effectively come to the rescue of the Palestinian people. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you benefited from this discussion on political alchemy. Please like, share and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.